Have you ever seen a lone soldier on the battlefield without any comrades nearby, vulnerable to every attack? In chess, a similar situation often arises with pawns. An isolated pawn is inherently weak without support because it lacks adjacent pawns on either side to defend it. This fundamental structural deficiency makes it a perpetual target for the opponent, influencing the entire middle game and often the endgame. The primary reason for an isolated pawn's weakness is its inability to be defended by another pawn. Pawns move forward, but capture diagonally, which means they can only protect other pawns on adjacent files. When a pawn stands alone, it loses this fundamental cooperative defense mechanism. Consequently, it must rely solely on pieces for protection, which are often needed for other strategic tasks, tying them down to a defensive role. Furthermore, the square directly in front of an isolated pawn, known as the blockading square, becomes a permanent weak spot. The isolated pawn cannot advance to control this square, making it an ideal outpost for an enemy piece, which can then launch attacks or restrict your position. To manage an isolated pawn in your position, you generally want to either push it forward to create space or open lines, or trade it off before it becomes too great a liability. If you are playing against an opponent with an isolated pawn, your strategy should focus on blockading the square in front of it and concentrating your pieces to attack the pawn itself. This puts immense pressure on your opponent, forcing them to commit valuable pieces to its defense. Understanding the blockading square is a critical insider detail for advanced play. A well-placed knight or bishop on this square can act as a powerful anchor, controlling key central squares and preventing the isolated pawn from ever moving. This creates a long-term strategic advantage that you can then convert into an attack on the king side or queen side. By recognizing the inherent structural weakness of an isolated pawn and understanding how to both mitigate its effects when you have one and exploit it when your opponent does, you gain a significant edge in positional understanding. This allows you to identify critical targets, develop clear strategic plans, and ultimately guide the game in your favor.